The supply crate hit the floor of the shuttle bay with a thud, and nobody helped Cora pick it up. She did not expect them to. She grabbed the side handle, lifted, and dragged it the rest of the way to the gear locker. Inside was everything she had packed for the survey mission. A fire starting kit, a water filtration unit the size of her fist, a folding blade, 60 meters of rope, a compact med kit, and a pouch of pressed food bars. She had also added a small mirror, a hand compass, and 3 sheets of reflective foil. The mission was not supposed to need any of it. Survey Point 9 was a moon, not a dangerous one. The pre-mission data showed a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, temperatures between 8 and 22 degrees depending on the time of day, no large predators on record, no toxic plant life in the landing zone. Boring by any measure. The kind of place a crew visits, scans, logs, and leaves within 3 days. The crew of the Ardent Reach had done 50 missions like it. Rinsal was the mission commander. He was Vorkai, tall, very thin, almost impossible to catch off guard in a logical argument. His species had left planetary survival behind 3 centuries ago. Sealed stations, filtered air, synthesized food. They had not needed to start a fire for anything in 300 years. He stood near the shuttle entrance and watched Cora load her gear with something close to amusement. "You are bringing rope?" he said. "Yes," Cora said. "The moon has no cliffs on record, no rivers to cross, no structures to scale. Records are not always complete," she said. Ren made a short clicking sound, the Vorkai version of a polite laugh. He did not say anything else, but the sound was enough. Mira Ol sat near the rear of the shuttle. She was Salundi, amphibian, her pale skin slightly damp in the recycled air of the bay. She communicated partly through spoken language and partly through chemical signals Cora could not detect, but the look on her face needed no translation. She glanced at Cora's pack, then at the fire-starting kit on top, and said, very quietly, "Does she think we are camping?" Kess, the Dravosi engineer, was wedged into the far corner with its 4 arms working on a calibration tool. It said nothing about the gear. Dravosi did not waste words, but it looked at the rope for a moment longer than necessary. Cora finished loading and sat down. The shuttle launched 40 minutes later. The Ardent Reach shrank behind them as they dropped towards Survey Point 9, a gray-green sphere below a pale sun. Ren ran through the mission plan out loud. 3 days. Atmospheric and geological scans on day 1. Biological sampling on day 2. Pack up and departure on day 3. Clean, simple, efficient. He did not mention Cora's gear. She did not bring it up. The descent was smooth. The moon's atmosphere was thin enough that entry caused barely any turbulence. Through the forward viewport, Cora could see dense forest covering most of the valley below, dark green and close-packed. The canopy, so thick it looked solid from above. The landing zone was a flat clearing near a wide stream. Good ground, dry, tree cover on 2 sides. Ren noted the clearing on his display and called it acceptable. Cora noted the clearing and started thinking about where she would build a fire if she had to. When the shuttle set down, the 4 of them stepped out into still, cool air. It smelled like wet soil and something faintly sharp, like sap. The forest was quiet. Not completely. There were sounds, small movements in the canopy, the low noise of the stream to the east, but nothing alarming. Ren pulled out his scanner and began the atmospheric readings. Mira moved toward the stream for water samples. Kess opened the equipment bay and started removing the geological probes. Cora stood at the clearing's edge and looked at the tree line. She was not worried. Not exactly. But the forest was denser than the satellite images had shown, and the sky to the north had a particular gray-yellow color she did not like. The kind of color that sometimes meant electrical weather. The scanner would tell them more eventually, but scanners told you what was already happening, not what was about to. She went back to the shuttle, pulled her pack from the gear locker, and placed it near the rear hatch. Just inside. Easy to grab. Ren glanced at her when he came back for a second equipment check. "You are keeping your bag at the door," he said. "Habit," she said. He made the clicking sound again. The small laugh. Then he walked past her, back toward the scanner array, back toward his data. Cora looked at the sky one more time. The gray-yellow to the north was spreading. She said nothing. She tightened the strap on her pack and stepped outside to help Kess with the probes. There was still work to do, and whatever was coming, she would handle it when it arrived. That was the thing about survival training that nobody on this crew seemed to understand yet. You did not prepare because you were afraid. You prepared because the universe did not care about your schedule. It did not announce itself. No warning tone, no slow build, no moment where anyone could have said, "There." That is where it started. 1 second the shuttle systems were running. The next, every light on the instrument panel went dark. Kess noticed first because it was elbow deep in the secondary console running the geological probe calibration. The device in its hands simply stopped. It pulled the probe out, checked the power cell, checked the connection. Nothing. It looked up at the dead panel above the pilot seat and said nothing. It started counting things instead. Outside, the sky had shifted from gray-yellow to a deep bruised green. The air pressure dropped. Cora felt it in her ears before she saw the color change. A hard pop, then a low hum coming from everywhere at once. She looked north and saw the light. Not lightning. A slow rolling pulse, like something underground turning over in its sleep. The ground gave a short, sharp vibration. Then the magnetic storm hit. From the ground it did not look like much. A shimmer in the air, a faint violet glow along the treetops. But the effect on every piece of equipment was immediate and total. The geological probes died. The atmospheric scanner died. The emergency beacon on the shuttle's exterior made one short burst of sound and went quiet. Rinsall ran through the numbers in about 4 seconds. He stood at the shuttle entrance, staring at his blank scanner. Magnetic storm. Induced current. System overload. Total electronics failure. His personal comm was in his chest pocket. He pulled it out and pressed the panel. Nothing. Comms are down, he said, more to himself than anyone. All comms, Kess confirmed. It had already checked 3 separate devices. Mira came back from the stream at a jog. She was already in trouble, skin pale, movements slightly off. The electromagnetic pulse had hit her species' chemical nervous system hard. Not injured, but not fully steady either. She sat down near the rear hatch and pressed both hands against the ground. "The shuttle," Rin said, turning to Kess. "Can it fly?" Kess went inside. It checked the propulsion core, the navigation array, the backup ignition. When it came out, it shook its head. "Not without parts from orbit. The navigation board is destroyed. The propulsion ignition is fused. We cannot go up." Rin stood very still. Cora watched him work through it. He did not panic. He just analyzed. "The Ardent Reach will not receive our signal," he said. "They will wait for our scheduled check-in. That is in 18 hours. When we do not respond, they will attempt contact. When that fails, they will send a search team. Earliest possible rescue is 22 to 30 hours from now. If they know where we came down," Cora said. Rin looked at her. "We filed a flight plan. The storm may have affected orbit side sensors too. They might know the general area. They might not know the exact point." A pause. Rin did not argue. He could not, because she was right. "Then we wait," he said. Cora looked at Mira on the ground, at the forest, the sky, the stream to the east. The shuttle was a dead metal box. No heat, no power, no way to reach anyone. She opened her pack. She took out the fire starting kit, the filtration unit, the rope, and the foil sheets. She set them on the ground in a row. Then she stood up and looked at the tree line. "We are not just waiting," she said. "Waiting is how you die slowly without noticing." Rin stared at the items. "What are those going to do?" "Tonight it will be about 6 degrees. Probably colder near the stream. The shuttle has no heat, and the heating elements in the thermal suits are electronic. They will not work." She picked up the fire kit. "I am going to make a fire. I am going to boil water from that stream before anyone drinks it, because we do not know what lives in it. And I am going to start a smoke signal before the light goes, because visible signals work when electronic ones do not." Rin opened his mouth. Cora kept going. "I know what you were going to say. Open fire is inefficient. The biological risk from the stream is probably low. A smoke column is imprecise." She looped the rope over her shoulder. "You are right about all of that. We are still doing it. Imprecise is better than nothing. Low risk is not zero risk. And inefficient heat is still heat." Rin said nothing. Kess watched her with its large compound eyes and did not move to stop her. Mira looked up from the ground. Her focus had sharpened slightly. She watched Cora pick up the fire kit and did not look away. Cora went to find dry wood. She already knew where it was. She had spotted 2 deadfall trees near the northern edge of the clearing when they landed. She noted them the same way she noted the sky color and wind direction. Not because she expected trouble, but because knowing cost nothing. She pulled the first piece of bark free and got to work. She did not ask for help. She did not explain herself. She just moved. Within 4 minutes of reaching the deadfall trees, Cora had enough dry bark and split wood to build a fire. She cleared a patch of bare earth in the center of camp, ringed it with flat stones from the clearing edge, and laid the wood in a low pyramid with the bark underneath. She pulled out the ferro rod, held it over the bark bundle, and struck. The first spark caught. She cupped it with her hands, kept her body between the flame and the wind, and fed it slowly until it was burning on its own. 11 minutes from the time she left the shuttle to a stable fire. She did not rush. A bad fire was worse than no fire. It gave you confidence you had not earned. Rinsal stood nearby with his arms folded. Fire, he said. You built a fire. Yes, Cora said. We have thermal suits in the shuttle. No power in the shuttle. The heating elements are electronic. They will not work tonight. Rin was quiet. Then, the temperature drop was in the pre-mission data. I read the same data you did. I know. I did not think about what a power loss would mean for the suits. I know, she said, without cruelty. She left the fire burning and went to the stream with the filtration unit and a metal cup from her pack. She pulled water from a slow, settled section, ran it through the filter, and boiled it over the fire. She did this 4 times until she had enough clean water for everyone. She gave the first cup to Mira, who was still sitting near the shuttle, still slightly off from the electromagnetic pulse. Mira drank slowly, and some of the tension in her body eased. Kes had not spoken since its repair report. Its compound eyes tracked every move Cora made. After the water, Cora looked at the shelter situation. The shuttle had some cover, but 3 of its 4 walls were metal, and metal pulled cold in at night. She walked the clearing edge, found 4 young trees growing close together, and started lashing cut branches between them with the rope. The technique was simple: long branches at an angle, smaller ones woven across, gaps packed with leaves from the forest floor. Kes built it correctly on the first try. Its 4 arms got it done faster than she could have managed alone. While they worked, she talked. Not to explain herself. Just facts, plainly stated, in case anyone was paying attention. The fire needed feeding every 2 hours, or it would drop below useful heat. Boiled water needed to stay in sealed cups. The windbreak would cut the effective cold by roughly 1/3, the difference between uncomfortable and dangerous for a resting body. Rin listened. He said nothing, but he stopped folding his arms. When the windbreak was finished, she took the foil sheets and climbed onto the top of the shuttle. From up there she could see the whole clearing. The smoke from the fire was going almost straight up. Good. A straight column was visible from a long distance. She fixed the foil sheets to the upper hull loosely enough to catch wind and move. Movement made a reflection easier to spot from above than a flat, still surface. She climbed back down. Mira was watching her with full attention. The disorientation was mostly gone. You planned this, Mira said. Before the crash. You already knew what you would do. Not exactly, Cora said. I knew what to do if something went wrong. I did not plan this specific situation. You cannot plan specific situations. You build skills and use whichever ones fit. Mira looked at the fire, the windbreak, the foil on the shuttle roof. How long did it take to learn all of this? I started at 8, Cora said. My grandmother taught me fire first. Mira did not answer. She turned back to the fire and moved closer to it. The temperature had already dropped 4 degrees. By full dark it would drop another 10. Cora knew this not from reading the data but from having been cold before, and from knowing what cold meant for a body that needed to last through the night. Rinsal sat down near the fire. He did not make the clicking sound. He did not say a word about primitive tools or unnecessary gear. He held his hands toward the flame and was quiet, and the fire pushed the dark back just far enough to make the clearing feel, for a moment, almost safe. Cora fed it another piece of wood and watched the smoke go up. By the second day, the crew had stopped pretending everything was fine. Kes made 3 errors in a row on the manual backup instruments. Small errors, but Kes did not make small errors. It was the best engineer on the Ardent Reach. After the 3rd mistake, it sat down, pressed 2 of its hands flat against its knees, and went quiet. Cora sat near it and said nothing. She knew what was happening. Without the background hive signal, the low chemical buzz of other Dravosi nearby, they lost concentration over time. Kes was not sick. It was just built for a world it was not standing in. Eventually, Kess said, I keep losing the number sequence. It is not a malfunction, Cora said. Your mind needs a different task for a while. Something that is not technical. She handed it a length of rope and showed it the windbreak knot. Kess worked it with all 4 hands for 10 minutes and came back to the instruments after that with steady focus. It never asked why the knot helped. It just kept working it whenever the errors crept back. Mira was better than the day before, but still slow. Her chemical nervous system had taken a real hit from the electromagnetic pulse, and the recovery was not a clean line upward. Some hours she was sharp and engaged. Other hours she sat by the stream and stared at the water with both hands braced on the bank. Cora left her alone during those times. Pushing conversation at the wrong moment only made it worse. Ren was the unexpected one. He was not struggling the way the others were. Mentally, he was as sharp as ever. But basic physical tasks gave him trouble. He had to break everything into steps before he could do it, and even then he moved slowly. When Cora asked him to add wood to the fire, he stood in front of it a beat too long, working through the mechanics in his head. When she asked him to help extend the windbreak, he built his section with perfect precision, but so carefully that it took 3 times as long as it should have. On the second afternoon, he sat beside her while she shaped branches for the fire pile. My species has not done unstructured physical work in a very long time, he said. I noticed, Cora said. She was not unkind about it. We moved into controlled environments before we left our homeworld. Full climate control, automated food, standardized infrastructure. There was no reason to keep the old skills. They became inefficient. Efficient compared to what? Cora asked. Ren thought about it. Compared to our technology. And when the technology stops working? He did not answer right away. Cora kept stripping bark. Humans never fully left the wild. Even when we had cities and power grids, we still had people who went out into rough environments on purpose. We camped. We trained. Other species thought that was strange. Why practice discomfort when you have comfort available? Why? Ren asked. Because comfort breaks. It always does eventually. And if you have never been uncomfortable, you do not know what your body can actually do. You do not know what your mind does when nothing is working. She set down a finished branch. I did not pack that gear expecting a crash. I packed it because I was taught to ask one question before any mission. What do I do if everything stops working? Ren was quiet for a long time. Then he said, We never asked that question. I know, Cora said. In the late afternoon, she built the mirror signal. She had been thinking about the angle since morning. The sun moved in a shallow arc over the valley, which meant the useful reflection window was narrow. She needed the mirror position to catch direct light during the peak hours and throw it upward in a repeating pattern. She built the mount from 3 branches and the rope, lashed the cracked mirror panel from the shuttle's broken instrument housing to the top, and angled it by hand. Ren watched her measure the arc using her fingers against the sun's position. You are calculating the reflection angle, he said. Roughly, she said. It does not have to be exact. It has to be visible. My instruments could give the precise optimal angle. Your instruments are dead. A pause. Yes, he said. They are. She got the mirrors set. They sat in the shade of the windbreak. At the 3rd hour, when the sun hit the right position, the mirror threw a hard pulse of reflected light into the sky. Cora adjusted the angle every 30 minutes as the sun moved. The signal would not reach orbit on its own, but if a search shuttle came within visual range of the valley, it would be impossible to miss. Ren watched the light pulse upward. He had not laughed since the crash. He had not made the clicking sound. He was, Cora thought, doing something his species was not naturally built for. He was sitting with the fact that he had been wrong, and he was not trying to reason his way out of it. That was something. She moved the mirror again, and the light fired up, clean and sharp against the afternoon sky. Cora heard them before she saw them. 3rd night. The fire had burned down to a steady base, and the clearing was quiet except for the usual sounds. Wind through the upper canopy, the stream to the east, the occasional crack from the wood. She had been awake for the last 2 hours of her fire watch shift, half sitting against the shuttle hull with the blade open in her hand. Not because she expected trouble, just because it was night in an unknown place, and that was the right way to sit. What caught her attention was not a sound. It was the absence of one. The small movements in the canopy, the rustling, the faint chirps from whatever lived up there, stopped all at once. Like something had switched them off. She sat up straight. She scanned the tree line. Dark shapes, dense shadows, nothing moving. Then one of the shadows moved. 4 of them came out of the trees on the north side of the clearing. Low to the ground, longer than they were tall, wide flat heads, and 4 heavy legs. They moved in a slow spread, not charging, just testing. About the size of large dogs but built heavier, thick necks, eyes that caught the firelight and held it. Cora stood up slowly. No sudden movements. She reached back and touched Ren's shoulder. Once, firmly. He woke instantly. Borkai did not sleep deeply. She held one finger to her mouth and pointed. He looked and went completely still. She woke the others the same way. Mira came awake fast and quiet. Kess opened its eyes and did not move. The animals kept coming closer. Not rushing. Walking the perimeter of the firelight, reading the situation. Their eyes stayed on the group. Cora picked up a long branch from the fire pile, held the thick end, and pushed the tip into the coals. It caught in about 20 seconds. She lifted it out, a torch. She held it at arm's length and stepped toward the animals. Not fast. Measured. She made herself as large as she could. Both arms out, torch high. She let out a sharp sound from the back of her throat. Loud, low, and continuous. Not a scream. Something older than a scream. She took 3 steps toward the nearest animal and swung the torch in a slow, wide arc. The animal stopped. It watched her. Its 3 companions watched her. She did not look away. She did not lower the torch. She stayed between the animals and the rest of the crew and kept moving, steady and slow, pushing the firelight into their space. The lead animal pulled back 1 step. Then 2. She pushed again. It took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of holding the torch, holding the ground, not breaking. The animals circled 3 times. Twice the lead one came close enough that she could hear it breathing. Each time she pushed forward. Each time it pulled back. Eventually they moved back into the trees, and 10 minutes after that the sounds in the canopy came back on. She walked back to the fire and sat down. Nobody spoke for a while. Then Rin said, "How are you not frozen?" She looked at him. His hands were still flat against his legs. He had not moved from the moment she woke him until the animals left. She was not sure if that was because she had told him to stay still, or because he genuinely could not move. "I was scared," she said. "I felt it the whole time." "That is not what I mean. Fear is a calculation." The calculation said threat, high, do not approach. Every instinct I have said fall back. You walk toward them. Yes. How? She thought about it. There is a difference between feeling fear and letting it make your choices. I was afraid, and I kept moving anyway because moving was what I needed to do. You learn that. You practice it. Not by being fearless. By moving scared, over and over, until it becomes a choice instead of just a reaction. Kess set down the knot rope it had been holding the entire time. Its hands were shaking slightly. It looked at them, then at Cora. "You stayed between us and them," it said. "Yes." "The whole time." "Yes." Kess said nothing else. It looked back down at its hands and started working the knot again, slower. Mira had not spoken at all. She was sitting with her knees pulled up, watching the tree line. After a long moment she said, "My species' threat response is flight. Always. Every instinct says get to water and go deep. I could not have done what you did. You stayed," Cora said. "You did not run." "I wanted to. Staying when you want to run is not nothing." Mira looked at her, then looked back at the trees. The fire burned. Nobody slept much for the rest of the night. Cora fed it, checked the mirror signal in the pre-dawn light, and watched the sky. The gray-yellow from the first day was gone. The sky had cleared to a deep blue-black packed with stars, and somewhere up there, the Ardent Reach was still circling. She wondered if the search shuttle had launched yet. She kept the blade open in her hand and watched the dark. The search shuttle found them because of the light. The pilot, a Vorkai named Doss, came in low over the valley on the 4th morning and almost passed the clearing entirely. Then the mirror caught the sun and threw a hard white flash straight up into his flight path. He banked, came around, and saw the smoke column rising from below. He sat down in the clearing 15 minutes later. He stepped out of the shuttle and stopped. For people sat around a fire in a handmade camp. A windbreak built from cut branches. Rope lines strung between trees. Reflective foil sheets fixed to the top of the crashed shuttle. A mirror mounted on a pole, still slowly rotating to track the sun. Doss stared at all of it. Then he looked at Rinsal, the man he had served under for 6 years, and said, "Commander, are you well?" Yes, Rin said. Thanks to Lieutenant Vance. Collect your things and take us home. The trip back to the Ardent Reach was quiet. Mira slept. Kes sat with its eyes closed and 2 hands still working the knot. Rin looked out the window the whole way. Cora sat in the back and ate a food bar and let herself be still for the first time in 4 days. She was tired in a way that went past the body. The kind of tired that comes from being alert for too long. The formal debrief took place 2 days after extraction, once the medical team had cleared everyone and the mission data had been recovered from the shuttle's physical logs. It was held in the operations room with 4 senior officers present. Rinsal ran it himself. He laid out the incident in full. The magnetic storm, the total system's failure, for days without functional technology. He was precise about the timeline and exact about the cause of each problem. Then he spent a long time on what happened after the crash, and he was just as precise there. He described the fire, the water purification, the windbreak, the mirror signal, the predator encounter on the 3rd night. He walked through each decision Cora made and explained why each one was the right call. He did not frame any of it as lucky. He used the word skill 11 times in 20 minutes. At the end, he submitted a formal written recommendation. In it, he wrote that the crew's survival rested entirely on the field knowledge of the human crew member, and that this knowledge was not guesswork. It was trained, practiced, and applied under real pressure. He recommended that all deep survey missions include at least 1 human field officer. He recommended that human survival training be formally studied and folded into multi-species emergency protocols. He also recommended that the Galactic Survey curriculum add a module on what to do when all technology fails at once. Nobody in the room spoke for a moment. Then one of the senior officers, a Salundi named Ovis, said, "Are you recommending that other species learn to start fires?" "I am recommending that other species understand why humans never stopped," Rin said. After the debrief, Mira submitted a personal log entry to the mission record. She wrote that she had assumed the physical tools a human packed for a routine survey were a sign of underdevelopment. She wrote that she had been wrong. She did not add anything after that. She did not need to. Kes said nothing in any official record. It found Cora in the corridor outside the operations room after the debrief and stopped in front of her. It held out one of its 4 hands. In the palm was a small carved token, flat, round, dark, with a simple geometric pattern on one side. A Dravosi acknowledgement of debt. Cora took it. She turned it over once and closed her hand around it. "You do not have to," she started. Kes shook its head once and walked away. She did not push it. Some things did not need to be turned into a conversation. She went back to her quarters, set the token on the shelf above her bunk, and opened her pack. She laid everything on the floor. The filtration unit needed cleaning. The ferro rod still had good strikes in it. The rope was fraying near the middle. She would replace that section before the next mission. The blade was fine. The foil sheets were gone, still attached to the shuttle roof somewhere on Survey Point 9, but she had 2 spares at the bottom of the kit. She worked through each piece slowly, checked it, replaced what needed replacing, repacked everything in order. It took about an hour. Same process as always. No skipped steps, no rushing. Nobody had thanked her during the debrief. She had not expected it. Thanks were for things that surprised people. What she had done was not surprising. It was what the gear was for. It was what the training was for. When the pack was ready, she zipped it shut and put it beside the door. Then she lay down and slept. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched in every direction, cold and enormous and not particularly interested in any of it. And somewhere out there, other ships were moving through other dark places, and some of them were not carrying anyone who knew how to start a fire. She had done the job. That was enough.